What's up, guys? James from Project Still Beating here. It's a great day for a mountain bike ride, so let's get this thing started. Wait a second, this ain't my bike. What bike am I on anyway? Oh yeah, I remember now. Today's Scott Demo Day here at Veterans Park, and I'm going to demo the Scott Spark 940. Let's take a closer look at this thing. Alright, let's talk about some of the parts we got on this thing. Front suspension is Fox 34 Performance Air Shocks. This little bad boy here is known as the Scott Twin Lock. We're going to talk much more about this later in the ride. View of the other side of the handlebars. Got some Shimano shifters on them. This dropper post is the Fox Transfer Dropper. Loved it. And the bottom shock is the Fox Nude Trunnion. Alright, the first thing I noticed on this bike is how smooth it shifted. It may be due to the great Shimano componentry that was on the bike, or it may be due to they had a Scott representative out there taking care of the bikes. He may have been setting everything up just perfect. But shifting is very important, and this bike was definitely shifting smooth. I'm going to leave a link in the description because I'm not going to go over all the componentry on this bike, so you guys can click the link and see exactly what componentry was on the bike for sure. But you know, that's one thing you should do on your bike, is make sure and keep your shifting maintained, because good shifting will keep you riding good and smooth, and that's for sure. This bike rode really comfortable too. You know, I'm used to a hardtail and not used to the full suspension, so this was like riding a Cadillac for me. Super comfortable over all the rock gardens. You know, anywhere on the trail, the suspension worked really great. Has some good Fox suspension on it, so I wouldn't have expected no less. You know, if you're into full suspension, this would definitely be a good bike to get. Another feature that I'm not used to either was this thing had a dropper post, and after riding this one, you know, I'm really thinking of putting one on my bike. I don't need one a whole lot in adventure racing, but with my riding style and some of the things I do, a dropper post would definitely come in handy, and I used it all throughout this demo. It was the Fox Transfer Dropper, and I really enjoyed it. So I may be looking to add one of these to my bike, or you know, maybe get one and do a review on just the dropper itself. So look forward to that in the future. So when the Scott guy was setting up the bike for me, one of the features that he pointed out, and he said is like a specialty on the Scott bikes, is the twin lock system for the shock lockout. And I can see why this is a specialty item for them. This thing was pretty awesome. I really like it. I wish, you know, I had something like it on my bike. You know, I've got a lockout for my shocks. That way, you know, if I got a really hard climb or I need to get a sprint going on, I can lock my front suspension out. But this is called the twin lock, and it works with both front and back suspension at the same time. You can have it all the way open, so you got full suspension on both of your shocks. You can push it in one click and it'll take it down to about half suspension, you know, for certain areas of the track and stuff like that. Or you can click it in one more time and it locks out both suspension. Now you also have a lever right above it that you just click right back and it moves it back to each one of those spots wherever you're at. So I mean, I really like this thing. I played with it a lot during this demo, and it's very cool. You know, in the future, you know, I look to be getting a full suspension bike for maybe some downhill or some enduro type riding. And you know, I may be looking at Scott just for this feature because it's really nice. Okay, so for the most part, all the componentry on this bike seems to work really well. And again, I'm not going to talk very much about the componentry and everything like that. I'll put a link in the description and you can go on there and check out everything that's on the bike. But for the bike itself, the geometry is set up basically for a all-around trail bike. I probably wouldn't suggest it if you were going to get something for like cross-country racing or something like that, because I don't think the geometry is quite set up for that, for the style you would want to be riding. But I'd really like to test this thing on some downhill, really rough, gnarly, rooty, rocky stuff, you know, to test out the suspension and see exactly how well it rides. The geometry is set up to where it's supposed to be really stable, going really fast. So that's one thing I would love to do. Of course, we were doing this demo at Veterans Park and there is no really big downhill with rocky, rooty stuff, but that's the kind of testing that I'd like to try this bike on for sure. But maybe another demo another day. So basically, for an overall trail bike, this thing seems pretty good. So the one bad thing that I did find about this bike, and I'm not going to necessarily say it's a bad thing, because this is more of a overall type riding bike. You know, you can use it for more overall styles of riding, and where my bike is set up with racing geometry and stuff like that, my bike is way more aggressive in the turns, and this one was not really aggressive in the turns. It took a lot of getting used to. So, you know, I wouldn't particularly pick this exact bike just for that reason, but they do have a Spark that has some more racing geometry, and you know, I may look into something like that in the future. But just be aware that if you're like really into turns, this one may take a little bit of getting used to. So overall, I suggest this bike for, you know, anybody looking for an overall trail bike. If you get a chance to go out to a Scott demo and you're looking for a full suspension bike, I would definitely suggest you demo this one, because it's a pretty great riding bike. Okay, I'd really like to thank Scott Bicycles for coming out and putting on this demo here for us today. I'd also like to thank Crankworks Bicycles for bringing out Scott and getting them here to our local track. And I'd like to thank the KY MBA for keeping our local trails good to go at all times. That way we can do stuff like this. So I really appreciate you guys, and thanks for coming out today. If you like this video from Project Still Beating, click down here in the corner and watch another one. And while you're at it, click up here in the corner and subscribe. Please follow us on all social media sites, and if you haven't clicked the like button down below, please do that now. This is James from Project Still Beating, and thanks for sharing my adventure with me.